Okay, and let us begin. Carrie, I'll let you kick off while I background stuff.
Cool. So welcome everybody to our October meeting. We were hoping to be in person, but we couldn't get our venue squared away just in time. So we have taken it online. My name's Carrie Townsend. I am freelance consulting under my company Amber Star Consulting, and my co-host is Jimson.
Yeah, hi everybody. I think everyone knows me, Jimson Lee, cloud analyst, marketing cloud, CDP, Datorama, SME, subject matter expert. And so Carrie and I have been doing this meetup since March 2017. That's when we started, actually.
Yeah.
And our very first talk was actually on Social Studio. We had Siobhan from Media Measurement speak on Social Studio, and it was, I think, March 2017 was just after the Brexit vote. And so she was showing live stuff happening from Social Studio, how it worked, sentiments. But unfortunately, this talk will talk a bit about the death of Social Studio 5 years later. So we'll get onto that in a bit. Okay, let's get on with the PSAs. I'm handling it, right?
Yep. Sorry, Jimson.
That's okay. Oh, hang on. Okay. Okay, so this is my slide. So we're recycling the book review of the month, which is now book review of the year. If you haven't had a chance to look at this book, I highly recommend it. It's from Greg Gifford. He's very active in the community, very helpful guy. He's actually spoken to our meetup a while ago as well. And I think it's good to take a look at this book. You can buy it physically, and you can also get it on Amazon Kindle.
Yeah, and it's great to see some marketing cloud books. I'm a big fan.
Exactly. And also the other free resource I recommend is almost free and is from Pluralsight. I think you may be familiar with that site. Lots of great content. In fact, I think Matt Morris has a CTA architect course, and you can talk about that in a second because Matt will be speaking on Dreamforce in a few minutes. But I highly recommend Pluralsight if you haven't had a chance. Everything is free until October 16th. So just log into it, get an account, and check out all the great content. Carrie, I'll let you do this.
So then our next meetup, we are planning to be in person. That will be Thursday on the 10th of November at the Slalom offices. And we also list out the other meetups that are coming up. So Pardot is going to be on Tuesday, the 25th, London Devs on the 20th, London Admins on the 18th. That's you, Matt. And I believe that one is it's going to be quite monumentous because Todd's raising money for charity, and we're going to see those luscious locks disappear. Is that right, Matt?
That is right. Todd is cutting his hair for charity. Now, Amanda is going to be doing the cutting, so I don't know if it's going to be more like a sheep shearing or what. I don't know if he's going to get a style or if he's just going to be bald. So yeah, tune in to find out. I'm a bit scared.
Yeah, but it's all for charity. Feel free to put your hand in your pocket there if you are so able to do so. And then the Women in Tech are meeting on the 2nd of November. And then there is a new architect group in London. And I believe possibly that might be their first meeting, but there is definitely a meeting on the 9th of November, which you can sign up to now. So as you can see, we have quite a full calendar in London for all the different groups. And I challenge you to find a different Salesforce need that is not serviced by one of these groups. There's also the Data Tribe. I'm afraid we haven't got their next date on here, but if you're into your analytics and data, then they're also a group that you'll want to go and join.
And also there's another group, the Tableau user group, not to be confused with Tableau CRM. They have a user group, but they're not on this platform. They use a splash page, but they are part of the Marketing Cloud ecosystem. And last but not least, just stay tuned. I believe there's going to be an announcement on a Dreamforce to You. I know Dreamforce does a lot of individual big cities afterwards, and dates are to be discussed, but keep an eye on that on the social media channels. Okay. Okay, Dreamforce. Who was there? Was it bigger and smaller than 2019? How big were the venues? How were the attendees? When is next year's Dreamforce? So we have a very special guest today, Matt Morris. Matt, welcome. Thank you for sharing your experiences here.
I'm not special.
I believe you want to share your screen and show some slides. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'll let you share yours.
I can, and I'm happy to do so. So these are the slides that I made for briefing my colleagues when I came back. So I've got good mileage out of them so far. I'm very happy. So yeah, I think I can whiz through these. Please do raise a hand or shout out if you want to make it interactive. I'm okay with that. So this is the Dreamforce 2020 recap. I don't have an intro page or a bio page on this. So my day job, I'm Salesforce Innovation Director at Capgemini, so hence the branded slides. So I spend about half my time working on enterprise projects and the other half doing business development and looking after ISV relationships and knowledge and best practice on different clouds throughout Europe as well. So pretty interesting. And I got to go to Dreamforce because I'm a community guy. I was very, very happy because I've been a long time in the community. Yeah, I do co-run the London Admins User Group. Yes, we are meeting, and I am also a Pluralsight author. My course is free all day, every day. I'll put the link in the chat if you want to access it, but that's not part of the free week. It's always free. Yeah. In terms of the Dreamforce update, so I can cover off the announcements, a few observations about the leaders of Salesforce, and I'll also tell you who my colleagues were there, even though maybe you don't know them, but maybe you do.
Yeah, well,
actually,
maybe.
You probably do, because actually one of them is Karina, our marketing cloud lead. So you do know.
We may well know.
So in terms of the announcements, what were the big announcements? There were a lot of announcements. There always is at Dreamforce. So this is mostly out of the keynote. I didn't even get around to things like the industry cloud keynotes, where I think there's a whole swathe of announcements I haven't even got into yet. I think I'll say apologies to the Marketing Cloud group. I don't have anything Marketing Cloud specific, but I will be talking about Genie, which at the moment, I think the only bit of Genie that's actually genuinely available is a bit of Marketing Cloud. So let's launch in with Genie. So what do I think Genie is? And I've been talking with Salesforce a little bit as they start to release more information about what Genie is. Not a whole amount of substance to it at the moment. So I'm sticking with my take. I describe Genie as equaling Hyperforce plus Lightning plus Flow plus Customer 360 plus MuleSoft multiplied by Tableau. And what do I mean by that? Hyperforce, long time in the making, it is here, and that allows Salesforce to run their core infrastructure on public cloud, much more scalable. Hopefully we'll see a reduction in the limits, or an increase in the limits, depending on how you look at it, an easing of the limits, but it also allows them to scale their infrastructure much more easily than when they were running on Oracle and proprietary hardware. Lightning experience, Lightning took far longer than anybody wanted for it to actually become viable. So that goes back as far as 2014, really. But Genie is very much event-based. It's about, when changes in customer data are detected, events are raised. If we didn't have an event-based UI in terms of Lightning experience, it's built from components, you don't get a lot of value out of Genie. So, Lightning is a core part of making, Genie useful, as is Flow. So, Salesforce are pushing Flow for the last couple of years. They're retiring workflow rules on the core engine, replaced with Flow. But that's not the bit of Flow that's most relevant here for Genie. What's relevant is the design canvas. So having that drag and drop interface to connect different boxes with arrows that link things together. Those boxes now represent things that don't live on core Salesforce infrastructure. So it might be, you are reading an account record but you are then pushing some information to a different box that represents some part of Genie. And so by having that flexible design canvas, it's now possible to orchestrate stuff across clouds. So, you know, we have to see where this is going, but, you know, flow is definitely part of the picture for Genie. Customer 360. So this is basically the acquisition Salesforce made in 2020 that kind of gave them that core capability of a large customer data platform, Customer 360. But they're saying Genie is much more than that. So in some documents I was reading today, Genie is much more than just Customer 360. Genie is, and genuinely they use words like Genie is magic. So I think we still have to wait to see what it means, but I can show you that document. You know, clearly having a large scalable database, you know, which is, you know, previously Customer 360, is an integral part of having all of that data. They're also going to be adding to the number of integrations from external data platforms. So whether that's a LinkedIn, whether that's different commerce platforms, all of that feeding into, I presume, Customer 360, and then events being raised, you know, with Genie. MuleSoft in terms of integration. So little graphic down the bottom there, you know, there's an example of a data weave that comes from MuleSoft. So this is mapping fields in one database to fields in another database. So this is how we're going to connect this huge data store in Genie with, you know, our crusty old Salesforce CRMs. And then multiplied by Tableau. So it's all about the data, right? So Tableau is the engine that they are saying is being used for this modeling and, you know, the segmentation groups that you want to make, you know, for different aspects of data. So the Einstein label is not present here, it is Tableau. So I think that is interesting. But really, that's all we know so far. L'Oreal and Ford were our keynote examples, all using Genie, or presumably using bits of technology which are now called Genie. Hyperforce. So Hyperforce has been in the making for about 10 years plus. You know, were they ever going to do it? Was it ever going to be possible? Have they abandoned it? Well, they had to make it work, and they have made it work. So they're now saying it's live in 10 regions. I think it's 10 countries actually, and then it's going to be available in 17 by the end of 2023. Now, I think, reading between the lines, you need to be on a Hyperforce instance in order to have the full Genie functionality, right? You need to have that hyperscale, you know, public cloud infrastructure to have the large amounts of data and the large amounts of integration that's going on. But Hyperforce is here, and I think that, you know, this is going to be, for me, very similar to kind of what we've had with Lightning Experience, which is over time everybody's going to get migrated away from Oracle and onto Hyperforce. And I think there's talk of having different service levels. So you might want a high availability Hyperforce instance, or you might just want to take the standard. So lots of change there. Net Zero Cloud, so something we're very interested in Capgemini around sustainability. We had heard rumor that they were going to be coming out with a net zero marketplace, and indeed they did. And this is kind of a repeat model of the App Exchange, right? So rather than Salesforce trying to work out what are the smart things that you need to build in terms of sustainability, why not just get other people to do that, and you have the marketplace. So they've got 90 examples of what they call ecopreneurs, so people who have built different solutions around sustainability on Net Zero Cloud that can be accessed through the Net Zero Cloud marketplace. One of those examples, apps, might be carbon trading internally within organizations. So, you know, that's a developing picture. Any questions so far or observations?
I mean, the thing that I would always interest me in terms of Genie, and as you said, with huge amounts of data on Hyperforce, it's just, when I think of who I've worked with, like I've worked with people and organizations within Accenture and, you know, the large enterprise, but it makes me wonder how relevant that is going to be to quite a lot of the audience base. Is that, because if you you need to be a huge enterprise customer, particularly at the moment, to have any need to go anywhere near that.
Yeah.
And then it's a number of years possibly before you fully harness that capability. Or am I being?
I mean, it's an emerging picture, really, Kerry. But I think what's interesting, if we look at Salesforce's aspirations for growth, B2B is pretty much saturated. They've got that covered. So B2C is where a lot of the growth has got to come from. Okay, we've got Commerce Cloud, but that's just e-commerce. Talking about data at consumer scale, and actually making use of, now you'll have to experts on the call hopefully can correct me. Is it third-party data, first-party data? What is it? But those external sources, trying to shoehorn those into your Salesforce org, even if you're a medium-sized business, is a non-starter. So I wonder if that's kind of the direction.
Cool. And I just, because obviously having watched it being not there, Genie has felt a little, magical in itself, in the sense that I'm not really sure what it is, and it's quite reassuring that you went and you're still not 100% sure what it is. But what I am aware of is that Genie has been plastered everywhere. And was there any Einstein? Has Einstein just been archived?
No, there was still Einstein, and actually mentioned here on Net Zero Cloud. So Einstein being used for recommendations, so the recommendation engine being used there. So it is absolutely still present. It wasn't bound into the Genie story, though. Like I say, it was Tableau that was the brand that was put there. So, but again, I mean, I don't know if we can read too much into that at this point, or we just have to wait and see. Cool. It's magical.
We can only hope.
So a couple more for you. So Slack. So they made some enhancements in terms of Slack's collaboration tools. So one of those was a home for Quip. So Quip documents you can now co-create inside Slack, and they call that Slack Canvas. And then some more sort of ad hoc huddles to sort of support remote co-working, which I confess actually it's pretty handy. Although I think we're all on too many back-to-back calls, aren't we, these days? But being able to pull people into a chat that's more than just a group chat, I think is handy. So preview and GA on Slack Canvas, and the huddles is GA. Now Slack platform, this is the big one. So they've added more APIs to Slack to make it a programmable platform. So that's really a sort of a Todd Halfpenny presentation, really. But I think clearly Slack being promoted to be a first-class citizen within the Salesforce platforms there, and you could see that some of the stuff maybe that used to be done on Heroku or AWS, you could probably do that on Slack now natively. So all about your digital HQ, but that's only open beta, so that's obviously early days on that one. Travel into community. So I think Salesforce very clearly recognizing, if they want to continue to grow, they've got to continue to have their ecosystem be accessible and equitable to people from, diverse backgrounds. So a colleague, one of my Capgemini colleagues, was featured in the keynote story. She was a political refugee, I think from Afghanistan. Seema will kill me if she ever sees this. I'm going to get it wrong. But she had to flee her home country to the Netherlands, and was able to pull herself up by her bootstraps. And now she worked for an end user, Salesforce end user, and now she works for us at Capgemini. So that was held up as a great story. Refugee Force, if any of you are familiar with that, is a charity started in the Netherlands, also over here in the UK, that does training enablement for that group of people. There are many other groups of people, and the fact that this was all recognized in the keynote, I think, is Salesforce paying dues to what a significant factor this is in their success. Numbers. So they always like to be flexing on the numbers. The key one here, I think, apart from the usual hockey stick graph, is Salesforce now say they passed SAP in terms of being enterprise #1 enterprise apps company. I think the interesting thing is, for me, is that they also recognize that technical debt is probably one of the other big obstacles to Salesforce's future growth. So orgs getting broken within a couple of years because of lack of governance, lack of good architecture. So they're taking measures with architect enablement in order to improve that situation. And I think the fact that they've passed SAP is interesting, because I think if they want to keep on going, they need to actually become what they spent 20 years trying to overtake. Nobody ever starts an SAP project by rocking up and saying, let's build some stuff. That's exactly how we start all of our Salesforce engagements, right? Yeah. We rock up and start saying, let's start adding value to your business. Now, I think it's going to be interesting to see if that theme continues, or, particularly for large projects, we can see the governance increase. So my opinion only, but I think it's interesting.
Particularly it'll be interesting because obviously that architecture piece talks about like core platform and potentially also some with Marketing Cloud, but I can only imagine how much the technical debt really there is in Marketing Cloud orgs, particularly in the sense that there was, we started from an automation piece. People, like, things have worked in the way that they've worked, and then they've moved more into this canvas sort of, and there's a lot of, at what point do you migrate what you might have? Are those automation tools truly comparable? Can you do the same in both? Like, where is all of that? And I don't know, Jimson, you might have a position on this, but I've not really seen many of those types of conversation going on, like at a wider level, other than individual experts within their orgs, like providing guidance. But in the sense that on the core platform, we're surfacing a lot more of that conversation and what that might look like, and with the architecture website and the guidance on when to use what automation where and that sort of thing. So yet to fully see that realized from a marketing point of view in a public forum.
You've long been a multi-cloud person, Kerry, right? So multi-cloud before multi-cloud was even a thing, right? Now it's all anybody talks about. And I think that is significant. And poor old Marketing Cloud also is from what I've seen, and I'm not a Marketing Cloud person, right, but it's often one of the most abused places. We think that core CRM gets pasted. You've got people using Marketing Cloud as their data warehouse, right? So it's very common.
There's the poor Jimson will be like, but equally now, like the way that they, as a multi-cloud, like the way it's bolted together with commerce and things like that, there aren't necessarily built connections. There's an API-led connection with a collection of code that helps you move in that general direction, but people will have done all sorts of things to get that up and running to start with, and how scalable it is, and now with these new capabilities being we'll see.
Absolutely brings us back to Genie.
A very interesting landscape. And also, just so Hyperforce, I think, is also relatively exciting for Marketing Cloud as a whole, because I think it's sort of been, possibly speaking out of turn here, but Marketing Cloud will also be hosted on Hyperforce. They were doing the work in order for that to also come across, and then that allows it to be scaled much more, and then that allows it to be unlocked to a certain extent, that we might get closer to being able to have multiple orgs, which we might get close to the holy grail, which is the possibility of a developer org. Maybe you.
But it's last thought from me on this. It is absolutely extraordinary that at 22 years old, right, this thing is still running and running well, right? So that it's testament to the effort that they put into the engineering over all these years, because, you know, any of us that have been in technology, you know, for more than a decade or so, you know, you've seen people come and go, and products collapse under their own weight. And I mean, it's absolutely remarkable that you know, Salesforce has managed, you know, when I came in 2012, they sort of made the jump to Chatter, and they said that was significant in terms of they had to rewrite their platform from the ground up.
Yeah.
And then Lightning happened, and they had to rewrite the front end. And now we're seeing, you know, they're rebasing stuff on the back end. So yeah, I mean, I know we complain, but it's pretty impressive.
I mean, I'm always amazed by the Marketing Cloud numbers, because I think in the Marketing Cloud keynote, they said it's over 1 billion messages a year or something along, like email messages a year. And I'm just like, oh, oh, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
That does, oh, and I can only imagine what sort of things have gone out there.
Okay. We're halfway on the hour here,
yeah.
so can we?
All right, so last one, I think pretty much last one from me, and that's an observation on the leaders. So, you know, I talked a bit about the community, I talked about the growth. So leaders, so Brett and Mark. So you know, Mark's been looking for a co-CEO for a long time. Brett's here, he seems to have stuck. They both wore the bunny ears for Genie on stage together when they co-presented the keynote. So you know, it looks like Brett is here to stay, and I think we're probably seeing succession happening. I don't think it's going to be fast, but you know, they want to keep the investors happy. But the other thing I would say though is, you know, Brett is partnered up with Sarah Franklin, you know, who, you know, brought us Trailhead, brought us that whole Trailhead vision, and Trailblazer, you know, vision. You know, in here you've got two young dynamic executives who are very approachable, and you know, they want people to give them feedback directly. So you know, that I think is a re-energizing of the leadership, you know, supported by, you know, people like Lee McGowan Hare as well. So I think this is worth comment that you know, we're seeing, you know, kind of fresh energy, you know, to carry forward with all of these challenges. And just last one is, you know, Parker, you know, still about focusing less on engineering these days. He says more around enablement, and you know, he's sponsoring the architect enablement with the well-architected framework, and the Salesforce Salesforce Architects evangelism. I don't know if it's called that anymore, but you know, he very much sees himself helping to get people to make use of the platform that he says he spent, you know, most of his professional life building. So that's the last one from me. Thank you very much.
Any questions? I think the thing with Genie, going back to that, is that the current stance on Genie is that if you want to buy Genie, you are going to be sold Salesforce CDP, right? That is the official GA product today for Genie. So, and CDP is part of the whole Customer 360 bundle. And I always thought when Genie came out, it was really CDP on steroids. Now, I did a talk at London's Calling about CDP, and I talked about the 5 things about why CDP is much better than Marketing Cloud. And that talk is now vaporware, right? So I'll have to redo that some other time. But thing is, now when someone asks me about CDP, it's really the 5 topics of, you know, 5 features, plus I add, you know, real-time data with Genie, I added intelligence with Einstein or Tableau CRM, and I talked about automation and Salesforce Flow. So my list of 5 favorites is now 8. And I think that's probably worth an upcoming call, or another talk in one of these future meetups here. But yeah, CDP is here to stay. I think going back to your comment about the data warehouse, the answer is yes. People do a lot of data warehousing in Marketing Cloud, especially loyalty programs. They feed it into Marketing Cloud because they got a lot of storage space. Unfortunately, now, as you know, we've seen the headaches of real time and issues with that. So I think CDP, as we're going to see in a few seconds here when we go through the October release, that they've really made a big push on all other data storage platforms. And I think one thing they talked about was Snowflake, which is like Teradata, one of your data warehouse. They're talking now about getting that incorporated into Salesforce. So I think the whole CDP, all the external storages, all the APIs is going to be a really big thing in the next probably 2-3 years. So that's something to watch out for in the CDP space. Okay, let me get back to the slide deck here, if I can find it, since, Oh, hang on a second. No, hang on. No. Okay. That's Jeannie. Okay, so let's get to the October release notes or the winter 23 release notes. As you know, Marketing Cloud is now in line with Sales Cloud 3 times a year. They warn you ahead of time when that sandbox will happen. Unfortunately, there is no sandbox in Marketing Cloud. So when it happens, it happens. And now the winter 23 release is scheduled, well, already in progress, October 5th until 28th. The link's on the screen, but you can Google it. And I guess if you're in the chat, if you want to type in something that if it's active in your sandbox or in your org, just type in yes if it is there, if you see it. If not, that's fine. And if you want a good review and you like videos, I recommend the next Thursday or 2 Thursdays from now, 27 October at 5 o'clock. They go through the whole new feature overview. Unfortunately, these overviews cover all 20 Marketing Cloud products, including Datorama, Interaction Studio, you name it. So what we call exact target is usually about 15 minutes, and then it goes on to Tableau CRM and all the other features of Marketing Cloud. So it is a long one, but just do that while you're doing something else, and put yourself on mute. Okay, so was there anything exciting about the release? Yes and no. I wasn't too excited about it. The first thing that struck me was the Automation Studio data views. Unfortunately, it is a paid add-on. So once again, if you want to do some really complex API calls, right, we're doing complex API calls, you can actually do everything with this paid add-on. And if you want to see what all the data views are like, there's a great blog by Matus Dabrowski. The link is there, and he's summarized pretty much everything about data views you want to do. So that's something to do if you want to, if you work a lot with data views. As you know, the Marketing Cloud only holds 6 months of data off the sent data. So if you're doing anything with data views, any kind of file extracts, this can be your best friend, depending on what you're trying to track for, for your own needs. The other thing is that the Google Cloud Platform is in beta now, and Microsoft Azure is now GA. So that's exciting, as well with Amazon, AWS. It's been around for a long time, or actually S3, sorry. So that's around, and you can see the push towards CDPs, that they're making integration to all these data platforms much more readily, and that's probably why we see that. Another good exciting thing is the self-service custom domain registration. I know for years, for those who had to do SSL, we had to wait 4 weeks or more. Now you can literally do it like in 10 minutes by doing everything yourself, and that's a good feature to have. The only thing about SSL that really bothers me is that it used to be only 2 SSLs you needed, one for clicks, cloud pages, and the other one for images, because images was always stored at ASCII.NET. And now they're asking you to buy 5 SSLs now. So every time you want to, or not want to, you have to do SSL now, expect to be paying 5 per business unit per SAP. And that's something, but they lowered it. It's not, it used to be $400 per SSL. So it costs you $800 per BU per org every year. Now they lowered it, but you got to buy 5 now. So, so if you're into doing custom domain registrations, private domains, this is something that all self-service now. So that's great news. The last thing, 2 more things actually. For those who use Package Manager, I love that feature. You'll notice that it only does certain features, right? Certain modules, certain components, and like obviously it does data extensions, does email templates nicely. But if you want to do other features like trigger sends or other advanced features, it's not there. And one thing that was not there was interactive email. And you can go back to our YouTube channel, and we had Mark Robbins, formerly of Rebel, acquired by Salesforce. He did a nice talk about interactive email. Astrid did a talk on AMP as well for Gmail on that same talk. And we did, if you're doing any kind of interactive email in the old days, it wasn't part of Package Manager, but now it is. So that's great news. And last but not least, consent management. This is not a complete picture. In the release notes, this picture comes from their attempt to make consent management a reality in Marketing Cloud. Unfortunately, it's still a big scrambled mess. Everything goes back to May 2018 when we had GDPR and Salesforce introduced the individual object, which is the individual ID, and everything now hinges on that. In fact, if you use CDP, that's the one you use if you're connecting or deduplicating or identity resolution on the core side, on CRM side. You got to match it with the individual ID. And that's what this whole consent management is trying to do. Unfortunately, it's not perfect. It's not complete. Still a bit of APIs required. If you need things to write back to Marketing Cloud, there's a bit of API work to be done. I guess off the record, they want you to buy loyalty, which is expensive, but otherwise, it's still a big mess to deal with consent management. But at least now it's properly documented in a state where you can say, yes, I need to do this, I need to do that. It is there, but still not perfect with the consent management. And okay, so before we get on to Social Studio, any questions on the October release? Is there anything? There's a lot more that we skipped, but a lot of it is not, doesn't pertain, like the Datorama updates. No one really cares about that. But is there anything? Like I said, just you can always, email me, ping me, and ask me, anything that you want to see. But otherwise, it's not the most exciting of release notes, and I think it's because of Dreamforce. I think Dreamforce was announced so late, like in July, that a lot of effort was put towards probably Genie. I'm sure they put a lot of focus on the Dreamforce products and CDP. So a lot of good stuff for CDP here in this case. But anything exciting on Email Studio? Not really. Okay.
Has anybody on the call got any new functionality in their org that they're pleased to see? Or I don't know, sometimes it's we have a mixture of people on the call, so sometimes it isn't actually people live working in environments, they're just wanting to learn more. But
yeah,
anybody else on the call have any thoughts about the release that they wanted to share? No? I think we're safe there, Jimson.
Yeah, I think, well, like I said, a lot of the efforts were put towards CDP this time, and now Azure is now GA, so it's great news. So if you do have data in Azure, you can pull that into CDP, which will eventually be Genie. So I think it's a great, great thing. Yeah, Alex, I hear you reading the chats here. Yeah, it is a paid feature, but yeah, and there's a lot of stuff on Slack too, which I didn't cover, but this is more Marketing Cloud. Okay, let's get on to Social Studio. We got like about 15 minutes. So Social Studio, like I said in the opening preamble, that our very first talk was Social Studio, 2017 of March, how great it was, how that command center that we're so familiar with, like, if you use Hootsuite or TweetDeck, you can see what your calendar, multiple channels, and all that's going away. They've actually stopped selling it August of this year, and it's going to be fully decommissioned or sunset by November of next year. So if you are a Social Studio customer, what do you do? So I got some options on the next slide, but before I go there, I do need to reinforce that Salesforce isn't really forgetting about the social aspect of Social Studio. These 8 products have some form of socialness to it, like CDP. As you know, CDP, the power of it is that when you get your segment, you can actually publish it to another platform. It doesn't have to be Marketing Cloud. And in this case, you would use CDP to target an audience, a segment, to Ad Studio, for example, right? And so there is some socialness to CDP in this case. Datorama, again, a very popular feature. I must have configured hundreds of dashboards for people and clients, how we use Datorama, how they want to see all their social data. Now, the thing with Datarama, like people always say, well, I get the data in Google, I get the data in Facebook. The thing is, Datarama lets you harmonize data because everyone has a different way of identifying their field names. But Datarama is like a data warehouse. It is a data warehouse, and it gets a chance to harmonize, and therefore you can get data matching like for like, as opposed to saying, well, this is my Twitter followers, this is my Facebook followers. Well, this is why you use Datarama. Ad Studio, I mentioned before that it's great because it's part of social, right? You're targeting people with ads. Interaction Studio, again, the use case here would be you have a Google ad or a Facebook ad, and you target that and personalize the web page with Interaction Studio, which is now called Marketing Cloud Personalization. Digital engagement, of course, those in core knows what that means. That's the WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger feature of core or Service Cloud. And again, Marketing Cloud has WhatsApp features as well as Line. And so they haven't forgotten about social aspects to their product. They just don't have the product formerly known as Social Studio. And of course, Einstein Commerce, we have those features. Now, there's a lot more to Social Studio, and I think AppExchange is rich in a lot of partners. And one of the partners that I guess we work with is Reputation Studio. And I see we have John Jessup on the call here. Now, the thing is, all the stuff we talked about is great, but you spend 5 years building your brand, but you can lose it all in 5 minutes. So why not work on getting good reviews on Google reviews, Facebook reviews, Trustpilot? And so one of the aspects of our Social Studio packages or platforms is a product called Reputation Studio. So that's something to check out. If you're interested in building your brands, building your company, this is something that you should look into. You can do it manually, of course, and along with, like, say, SurveyMonkey. But if you want to automate things at a large scale, I recommend many of the AppExchange partners. This is just one of many, right? Okay, so what are the options of Social Studio, right? And just because Gartner is a fantastic company for impartial, Astrid used to work for Gartner, so she knows. And thing is, we recommend Sprout Social. We feel that's the best product out there that works actually better than Social Studio. It does everything you wanted, but more. And the only difference between Sprout Social is that it's not a Salesforce product. So any kind of integration you want has to be done through APIs. And I know the classic example, which Salesforce likes to taunt, is you buy a product, it's defective, you go on Twitter to badmouth them to make your return, right? That's the classic Salesforce product, right? Or you flew on an airplane, bad service, you don't call customer support, you badmouth the airline saying, hey, I lost my bag, or you broke my guitar, right? The United Airlines one, right? That's the kind of stuff that they talk about. So I think, to have that complaint or that tweet or that message, that update, to have that go back to Salesforce core social or Service Cloud, you need APIs. And that's probably the only thing you need to work on. So like I said, Cloud Analyst, we do Sprout Social integration. We also did Social Studio integration too. And we recommend this product. Now, there are other products that you can use to replace Social Studio. Zoho Social is pretty good. Zoho, the thing is, it's usually limited to like 3 users, like Zoho CRM, 3-user CRM, which is great if you're 3 people, but if you're more, it doesn't work. Hootsuite, Canadian company, they're pretty good, but they're expensive, and they do what you may want to do, but the APIs to connect it to Salesforce can be a challenge. And there's other ones that Gartner recommends, like Sprinkler, Khoros, Falcon. They're all fairly, they work, but again, you have to look at what your needs are. And then of course there's Hearsay and Adobe Social. Now, again, think about your company, think about, what you use a lot of. Is it Facebook, is it Twitter, is it LinkedIn, is it Instagram? Everybody is different, right? Beauty products, magazines, they like Instagram. Companies in the Salesforce world like LinkedIn. And if you're a B2C product like Nike or Puma, you definitely want to start using, like Twitter as well and Facebook, because a lot of people are on those platforms. So I think there's a lot of options for Social Studio. So at this point, I'm going to stop for a second, and I want to hear anybody has questions about what to do. Like if you are a Social Studio customer, or you want to have more socialness to your Salesforce or Marketing Cloud. Does there anybody have any concerns? You can speak up, put your camera on if you like, you don't have to, or you can type in the chat. So I think this was big. I mean, they Salesforce bought, was it Radiant 6 back in 2011? So it was a big deal to have this part of Marketing Cloud, and now it's going away, but it's not going away if you use third-party add-ons. So anybody want a use case, or anybody want to hear more about this? No?
I mean, have people been using social a lot? I know it's like I was involved and had been involved with a project quite a long time ago, but the classic use case was that social service piece, but I haven't been involved with it that more recently. But I'm interested to understand, that there are other partners out there, but I also find it useful that just to highlight the nuance of how all the other products, like we've evolved now, like WhatsApp was talked about heavily in the Marketing Cloud keynote, because there's a move into that channel now, and I suppose where people are on social has subtly changed over the years.
Well, if I may make a comment, I think a Social Studio was never really understood very well. And when you think about a Social Studio, you could be your own brand watch and really monitor and promote your brands very well. And the topics were very expansive. So they would cover not just your social channel, but all of the internet. It was very powerful, way more powerful, I think, than anything else out there. But the interface was not very friendly. Partners were not enabled. And so I actually think Salesforce did the best job of managing that project. And I think that's why it wasn't adopted as much as it should have been. Yeah, I think at the same time, Pardot also has this feature of interacting with social and having your own little Hootsuite interface. But again, it's never mentioned in any kind of demo, even though I always set it up for my clients because I find it very handy to have to monitor particularly your key outgoing socials for B2B. It's often not ever mentioned. WhatsApp is now huge, right? But you're saying in terms of the spiel of marketing spiel, but actually Hootsuite, WhatsApp has been around for a long time within the Salesforce space. It's just maybe that is just to take attention away from social. I think it's a completely different product and a different use case altogether.
Yeah, I think with Social Studio, there are actually two components. One was the replying to messages, keeping an eye on what people are saying, but there's also a listening part to it. And a good example once was when I tweeted, not at mentioning WestJet, for example, but I just put a link about WestJet, direct flights from Gatwick to Montreal, $299. And then right away, WestJet replied back to saying, thanks, Jimson, let us know if you need any help, but I didn't mention them, right? They were listening. A lot of these airlines, all these companies are listening to what people are saying or competitors are saying. So that's another aspect of Social Studio that it did. And like I said, it was really clunky with Social Studio. You had to buy topic profiles, you had to buy them, they're expensive. And now all that is covered in Sprout Social. And I'm not sure about the other ones, but that's something that you should do is to listen to your own complaints, not people directly bad-mouthing you, but complaints or compliments for that matter but also competitors, right? So, if I was an Adidas executive, I would want to hear about Nike as well, right? So, so I think there's a lot about social here.
Yeah, I think also Salesforce kind of missed the boat by letting go of Social Studio with the whole influencer marketing. This would have been an absolutely fantastic platform to really build a niche in influencer marketing, which of course is a huge piece of digital marketing today. It is missing out on all of that, and obviously WhatsApp is not going to replace that, nor is any of the other tools that they are having. So I think it must come up with an alternative to actually cover a certain part of digital engagement that it cannot necessarily own, but that it can influence. And so, yeah, that's my view on it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think anyone here who travels and uses Airbnb, you'll notice that most of them use WhatsApp, because when you're traveling, SMSs are expensive, right? And then so the host of the Airbnb you're staying at will, within a day of your arrival, before arrival, they'll connect you on WhatsApp saying, hey, any help, your questions about your flat, please use WhatsApp, which is kind of neat. So it's pretty big. Thank you, Akash, for that comment. Yeah, Salesforce does use Sprout Social for their tweets and Twitter. And conversely, actually, Twitter uses Marketing Cloud for all their emails as well. So they run into the billions of email sends. So yeah, it's all, everyone's all in the same bed together here, I guess, right? As you say in this world. So everyone's helping each other here. But yeah, I think it's something to think about. I think, you spend, like I said, a lot of time and energy building your brand, but you can just destroy it all in a few bad tweets. I think social is very important. It's as important as your email sends, as important to uptime on your own company, right? But I think it needs a lot of work still. But like I said, just let us know if you need any help or any questions on this topic. Okay, that's it for. And to that,
yep, we're at the hour.
Yeah, on the hour. Do we have any questions? No questions on Social Studio, no questions on Dreamforce, no question on.
Yep. Or I don't know anybody in the audience here who, I think John, you were there. I'm not sure if you're still able to interact with us. I don't know if anybody else on the call went to Dreamforce, if they have any thoughts or observations that they wanted to share. Matt, how big was it? That's what I couldn't really get a feel for, because
so the official number was listed as 50,000. So I would say probably there was a fair few hangers on and support staff, as there always is, right? So yeah. there was enough people. Every venue was busy. All right, they didn't have the venue up at the Hilton up the hill, and so there wasn't a river of people flowing up and down to that. But in the afternoons, the Trailblazer Forest was absolutely rammed. You could barely move. So it was busy,
Yeah. Cool.
So what about the Chinese presentation on the event, Matt? What is the overall kind of feeling about that?
The Chinese presentation?
Yeah. China is
well, I'm not informed on all of this, but I will observe this. There was the Alibaba Cloud Theatre in the Trailblazer Expo. So, if you take that and you take Hyperforce, and you can imagine, I'm sure Salesforce would like to get in to China and have the infrastructure question solved, but I think there's a number of other issues to be solved as well. But they were present as a large cloud provider.
And maybe sponsor as well. So
no, they were, yeah, absolutely. Sure. Yeah, they had a theater,
sure.
So that cost a couple of dollars.
Yeah, and next year's Dreamforce dates, it hasn't been announced, but we know what it is.
Yeah, it's I think somebody's posting in a WhatsApp group the other day, but I think around the 17th. It's similar again. It's like that third week of September. It looks like three days again. I woke up on the Friday morning. Now you can make jokes about this. I woke up on the Friday morning, bearing in mind it started on Tuesday, and I couldn't believe that was only 3 days. It was, either I've not gotten used to things being that busy, before it was especially busy. I think it was especially jam-packed. So
And next year is also 3 days, not 4 days, I believe.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it used to be sort of the 3.5 days, wouldn't it? They would start breaking down at sort of about 2:30 on the last day, on the fourth day, but now everything ran till 5:30 on the last day, and that was that. So
Yeah.
you know, in a lot of ways it made sense. People flying in on the Monday, some people flying out on the Friday. Yeah, but I mean, you know, definitely busy, and you know, I would think, you know, could they come back out of the gate with 100,000? No. I mean, how are you going to convince sponsors that it's all going to work and all be okay? And you know, one of the things that Brett Taylor said, paying tribute to Sarah Franklin, was Sarah like had to teach the company how to do Dreamforce again, because a lot of people had left or forgotten. So you know, I think they pitched it about right, I think.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay, well, maybe we'll go next year. We'll see. It's still a long way to
Yeah.
go. It's September, so it's not December, it's September. And okay, just to wrap it up, I think I want to thank everybody for attending tonight. Apologize, it's a virtual one, but next time we'll be in person. It's the Thursday, November 10, Slalom in London. I don't know where their office is, but anyway, just if you subscribe to this channel, you'll get the email update when it is, and it'd be nice to see everybody again. We haven't had an in-person meetup since May, I believe, this year, so it'll be good to have that happening.
Yep.
Carrie, any final words before we close up?
No. I think we're all good. Just thanking everyone for their time. We look forward to seeing you every week, and always feel free, you know, if there's anybody there burning to do a talk about any topic whatsoever, you let us know.
Yeah. There's 20 products to choose from, so you have lots to pick one. Just pick one. Oh, there you go. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Thanks for all the comments and chats. And we'll see you next month, November 10th, Thursday night.
Yep.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks,
See you
Matt, for
soon.
coming.
Bye-bye.
Joining. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Matthew.